Welcome to episode 66 of the Lone Hockey Podcast, where today we're going to be talking about Nathan MacKinnon from the Colorado Avalanche. So, when you look in depth about McKinnon's game, what you really notice is the powerful crossovers, the ability to separate from contact, and the ability to change gears with a higher degree of pace than many other players in his game. And the natural power, the natural prowess, the natural skating ability really stands out when talking about MacKinnon and how he's able to turn on a dime and pivot on a dime. And there's one player I really compare his skating to, and that's McDavid in that sense, because they're very comparable in the sense of how they're able to accelerate, gain speed, use their strides, use separation speed. And the difference between those two is that McKinnon is slightly more powerful in how he's able to gallop and how he's able to create space, how he's able to use his linear crossovers with power and purpose and prowess. That's the difference between the two, and that's why I believe McKinnon's arguably the best skater in the league. And McDavid's obviously best at separating from contact and being able to use his outside edges and stuff like that. But McKinnon's natural power really separates himself from so many skaters in the league. And then you look at his growth from where he was drafted and to where he's at now in the league and how much better he's continued to get. And obviously, he started in the league and he was a highly touted player, first overall pick coming out of junior with Halifax, and well known as a playmaker at that time, a pass first player. But now he's really evolved into a dual threat player who can score goals at an efficient rate and also make plays at an efficient rate. So two really rare skills that only elite centers and only elite players have the ability to do. And he's really created this sense of and this image for himself where he's become more of a dual threat player. He's become more of an offensive weapon. He's become a player who can produce over 100 points regularly in the league now. He used to be a player who could produce half of that, but now it's over 100 points pretty much consistently every single season he's played. And part of it and why I believe he's become so effective is his dynamic play. His dynamic play, especially off the rush, how he's able to change his gears, how he's able to incorporate different routes, different lateral playmaking elements into his routes on entries, and being able to maneuver on entries, being able to separate and being able to create space for himself individually in a lot of different ways. And you see the offensive tactical adjustments that he's continued to make in his game, and he's continued to get better and thrive in a lot of those areas over time in the league. And again, I believe part of this has to do with his dynamic routes and how he's attacking, because you see a lot more lateral playmaking, you see a lot more manipulation through feet, through sticks, using deception with his hands, using deception with puck positioning, and really become a play driving element. And a lot of those elements have allowed him to drive play in so many different small area circumstances and small area situations, not only inside the offensive zone, but on entries and inside the neutral zone as well. And with MacKinnon, you're getting a lot of different elements intertwined with better defensive play as well. His defensive habits have continued to improve over the years, but you're more reliant on the offensive game when it comes to him because that's his natural style. That's what makes him play at his best. And he's a threat nonstop whenever he's on the ice now because that's the thing. He first had his speed. He's had his speed forever in the league, but he's continued to add layers to his game that has allowed him to separate himself from many other players and allowed him to be a elite star in the NHL. And it's it's really interesting because especially him being a first overall pick years prior, you usually thought at the time in the first half of his career, you would have thought he would have been a 70, 80 point guy, maybe maximum. But now you look at him, you can argue he can get upwards of 130, 140 points per season because of how well rounded he's becoming in his offensive game and the tactical adjustments he's made in his game to become more consistent at even strength on the power play and being able to be more consistent in his shot volume and shot quality, being able to generate from interior space, being able to generate plays across the Royal Road, being able to generate passes with accuracy, consistency, and precision, and then at the same time intertwining that all with his transition play and his speed, the speed differential off the rush, creating dynamic routes off the rush, creating lateral playmaking off the rush. So you add all these elements together, that's a really, really dynamic threat, a really hard player to stop, a player who can create in all ways, in all tactics, and he allows himself to be available almost all the time as well. That's another big thing is his off puck support is continue to prove in the league as well, especially in the latter half of his career thus far. And it is a big hockey sense element for him in terms of how he's able to process play, how he's able to interpret space, and how he's able to create space for his line mates. And that's a big thing when it comes to him is being able to create as a centerman, being able to engage on all forms of the play as a centerman because he has to link together a lot of different elements, especially with Colorado's nuanced tactical system where they have a lot of movement within the O zone. So MacKinnon's a constant threat. He has to be constantly moving. He has to be constantly supporting the puck in small areas, especially frequently, because Colorado likes to rely more on small area play and constant movement, constant fluidity. So they have their D incorporated into the play. And by doing this, sometimes MacKinnon has to move all over the ice. He sometimes has to move low in the zone to support the F1 and F2, or other times he has to support high. So there's a lot of different situations with Colorado's system that also forces him to be essentially in the middle of all of that and trying to create different elements, not only for himself, but for his teammates and being an option for his teammates and being a support option in so many different situations. So with MacKinnon being a player that is in such a hybrid style system and advanced style system such as Colorado's, that's also really helped him, especially under Jared Bednar. Ever since Bednar's been in the league, I don't know how long exactly he's been in the league. I believe it's been over 7 to 8 years now with Bednar in Colorado. And you see the tactical elements off the rush, for example, like they have an F4 style rush system where they incorporate D in the rush. They incorporate D activating downhill and from the point on down inside the offensive zone. And then Ds are active on breakout situations. So they're not afraid to sprint the play either as a weak side D or strong side D or both. And retrieval situations, another big thing. Then forecheck situations, sometimes it's a hybrid 1-2-2 or it's 2-1-2 aggressive because Colorado can afford to be a little bit more aggressive with their F1 and F2 because of their speed and how they're able to skate. And that's the style of system they play. But anyway, going back to MacKinnon's style, again, MacKinnon has to link a lot of these elements together because he plays with speed. He initiates speed. He initiates the play. He initiates a lot of different situations. He plays so much ice time. He plays 25, 30 minutes, sometimes even more. And he's playing in a system where there's a lot of engagement from all five players that are on the ice. So it's much different compared to when you have stagnant Ds, because if you have stagnant Ds, there's less incorporation of the forwards trying to support high or trying to activate high, and the forwards are more focused on being low in the offensive zone, especially. And in neutral zone play can really be codependent on where the forwards are at in regroup situations, on line rush scenarios, and stuff like that. And then you look at D zone situations where teams that don't have as active Ds, they rely more on the forwards, and the forwards have to support each other in those situations. So with Colorado having all five players intertwined with each other, that creates a lot more elements for MacKinnon to try and create and be involved in the structure and the team's tactics because he's a natural center and the center has more responsibility than the wingers, especially as forwards. So that's really important when talking about the dynamic of MacKinnon's game and how he's able to link together a lot of different situations, how he's able to create offense, and how he's able to sometimes create neutral zone plays and transition sequences, rush play, all those sorts of things. And he's become a dynamic threat in the league and a nonstop offensive threat all the time. You see him so active in so many different situations, and he's such a big part to Colorado, and it's why he's going to continue to get better in future seasons because he has so many different elements in his game that will continue to translate as he continues to age as well.